First of all, I would like to say I made a video previously and I posted it on this channel. That video was an attempt for me to try and draw lessons from the situation in Africa or in South Africa in particular, whereby if you want to make policies for your own people, for the good of your own people, America jumps out, or any Western countries per se, they jump out and impose sanctions and try and influence and even dictate how we should set our own domestic policies per se. If you do anything that doesn't please them, they will put all these sanctions and all the punishments on you so that your country fails. After all the comments, I thought to myself, maybe I should make another video. Like I said, that was just an attempt to draw lessons or say what went wrong and comment on how our leaders made some certain mistakes, because I genuinely believe the reason why Africa can be bullied is because we are as fragmented countries, as fragmented African countries. We do not have enough power to stand up against these Western powers. Except if you look in the world, the countries that can actually stand against the Western influence and the Western powers is countries like Russia and China. They can withstand all this manipulation, all the sanctions and the threats from the United States of America because they are also very big countries. I think Africa, if it was a United States of Africa, could be able to stand and become powerful enough to be able to stand all these bullyings that we get from the United States of America. But unfortunately, our leaders chose to go the other route, not to unite Africa, get rid of borders, and make it a one state. And then people made it a land issue. And first of all, in matters pertaining South Africa, I always, I'm very, very clear on that. There are so many great people in South Africa, content creators, political analysts, and whatsoever. They will deliberate on those matters. I leave them to deliberate on those matters because I'm not South African. I do not want to be quoted saying things that are maybe incorrect pertaining the history of South Africa and all that. But it it was just an attempt to draw lessons from that. That was my main point. But as an African, the stance that I take on the injustice of colonialism, including the expropriation of land by the white people who took the land from black indigenous people. Look here, I will say this again. There is nothing complicated in this matter. People want to make it sound as if it's complicated because it's not. There are beneficiaries to this thing. There are those who still hold on to the land that they know for sure it doesn't belong to them. And they know how it was acquired. They want to make it seem as if it's complicated. There's it's magic. It's not. As long as we agree that the history of Africa, if as long as we agree that Europeans came from Europe to Africa, they were not native, they were not indigenous people of Africa, but they came from Europe. And when they got here, because they had sophisticated weapons and guns, they took control of African territories and moved away people of the land and put them in little camps and townships and all that. And then they took the land without buying it from anyone. Nobody invited Europeans. We don't have any account which says King Lobengula invited Europeans to come to Africa and asked them to develop the land. Nobody said that. They actually did it by force, which is actually a crime on its own. But here we are, years later, we are talking about compensation. I don't agree with this nonsense, man. I don't agree with this bullshit, man. If nobody invited you to come and develop that land, why do you need to be compensated for what? You know? And the question always, like I said, the reason why these things are done to Africa is because Africa is weakened. Africans cannot stand for themselves and make a single decision and say, this cannot be done on our continent. Like I gave a simple example of cattle. If you take my cow and I know you took my cow and you have stolen my cow from me, the only thing I want from you is that give the cow back. Are you now gonna start telling me that you see now I've been having this cow for 2 years and you must compensate me for feeding and taking care of your cow? Is that how it works now? If I go out now and I'm gonna steal somebody's car and bring it, can do some improvements on the car and put a table in it and all that. If the police finds me and say you have stolen this car, I'm gonna tell them, look here, I also need to be compensated for the improvements that I did on this car. Is that how it works now? No criminal charges against me. Actually, I must be compensated for the improvements that I did on the car. I think we are taken for fools as Africans because we we don't stand strong on matters, And the big question is, what about, the land was taken by force. People were displaced by force and be put somewhere else. Okay. So these people could not use their land for this while to develop themselves. Okay. Who is compensating for that? Secondly, when black people had to gain their sovereignty back and their freedoms back and including the land, because you cannot talk about having sovereignty when you don't get back everything that was taken from you. Because if you want to address the injustice, it simply means you're addressing everything else, your rights and your land, because the land was also part of what was taken away from you, right? When we went to fight in the war, many people died. Our fathers died. Our uncles died. We lost our family members to fight for a just thing, which is um, we just want our freedoms back and our sovereignty back. Who's compensating for all those people who died? Right? Think of it. If you were leasing that land that we've been using for years, developing your own countries, taking all those profits of the agricultural produces, taking them to England and Britain to develop Europe. That simply means you have debt to pay. You are the one who owes because you've been benefiting from this land yourself. So many other damages that we can talk of, which was caused because of colonization. Who is compensating for that? Instead of having a conversation where, if you want to have the conversation of compensation, yes, we can take it that road. Who is compensating us for all the suffering that was caused because of your endeavors of trying to colonize Africa and abusing Africans, taking away all our human rights, enslaving the people of the land? Nobody is talking about compensating, but you want to be compensated for developing the land, which nobody asked you to develop at the first place. Come on, guys. It's mind-boggling to me. I am stupid. I don't know how to read. I'm not educated. So please, I say what I say out of that ignorance and out of that stupidity. I don't know much about history, but all I was told is this is what happened. The Europeans came to Africa and took Africa by force and took our land by force. So I don't agree with the idea of compensating anybody. That is me. And in the matter of ZANU-PF, I saw another comment saying ZANU-PF is not compensating for the land, it's only compensating for the development. That is exactly what I've just responded to now. I don't think they should. But I also don't think they believe deeply within themselves. I'm sure if they do, I think Mugabe will be turning in his grave right now, because he was as radical as it gets with as an African leader. He stood for what is right. He stood for the truth, and I do not think the ZANU PF government has betrayed that ideology. But once again, it's just because us as Africans we have failed as a collective. It's not the ZANU PF government which has failed only, and all of us as Africans have failed because we have failed to develop our own countries. We have failed to develop ourselves to the point that we do not need uh, Western favors and all that nonsense. If we were developed enough, if when we took back our resources and get our freedoms back and get our sovereignty, if we had prospered, we wouldn't be here today talking about trying to compensate. The reason of trying to compensate is a diplomatic tactic of trying to gain the relationships uh, with the Europeans or the West or the white farmers, whatsoever. It's just because we have failed to develop ourselves. We have failed. That's what we must accept. That is the reason why they're trying to make these kind of decisions